incredibly difficult battle, Guts manages to incapacitate Randall. However, the previously wounded Apostle rises again and captures Griffith. He demands Griffith use the Crimson Battlement to summon the God Hand, but his hopes are shattered when he realizes that the Crimson Battlement is no longer in Griffith's possession. Out of nowhere, Zod intervenes and tears Wild into two, before informing Griffith that the Battlement will eventually return to him. Griffith continues to plunge into a dark abyss as a result of this prolonged torture. In a moment of sheer desperation, he activates the Crimson Battlement. He kneels in the water in the light of the setting sun and recalls Zod's prophecy. Meanwhile, Guts, who is chasing after Griffith in a cart of his own, notices an odd phenomenon beginning to take shape. The skies darken and a black circle approaches the sun. Soon, the eclipse is complete. Griffith's blood runs down his arm and makes contact with the Battlement, which opens its eyes. Though Griffith does hear Guts' voice calling out to him, he distances himself from his friend. He concludes that the pursuit of his dream of a kingdom is the only thing that matters to him. He decides to sacrifice all his remaining comrades. In exchange for this sacrifice, the mercenary leader, once known as Griffith, is reborn as the demon Vector, the fifth member of the God Hand. The remaining members of the Band of the Hawk are consumed by grotesque monsters known as apostles. Guts somehow manages to survive, but loses his left arm and right eye in the process. Vector proceeds to assault Casca, and her brain collapses as a result. In the end, the only members of the band who survive are Casca and Guts, thanks to the Skull Knight's timely intervention. In response to this horrifying incident, Guts vows revenge against all the apostles and the Godhead. He first gets himself a new sword crafted by Godot and placed on the side of an unidentified apostle who is fortunate enough to seek him out. He then slays the monster using an infused dragon's sling. Guts also receives a prosthetic cannon arm, and armed with these new weapons, he sets out on a quest for vengeance against his enemies. This, my dear friends, is how the Black Swordsman was born. Conviction Arc. The Conviction Arc is the storyline that directly follows the Golden Age arc and might just be even more twisted than its predecessor. The story begins when Guts and his companion Puck, the pesky elf, encounter a group of bandits holding a girl named Jill captive. However, a tree infested with evil spirits causes the captors to flee, leaving Guts to save the day. Guts and the tree fight fiercely until sunrise, and eventually our heroes find their way to Jill's village. Here, they come to know of a strange place known as the Misty Valley, which is believed to be the origin of elf-like creatures who often indulge in attacks and the abduction of children. Guts' grand begins to flee when the elves of the valley invade Jill's village, but he takes on the creatures and their apostle leader Rosine nonetheless. We also learn that these elves are nothing but the abducted children in the village. When Rosine and her minions suddenly retreat, the villagers turn on these. They blame him for the state of their village as well as the charred remains of children found in the barn. These children had reverted back to their normal forms once Guts incinerated them in battle, and the villagers were beyond invincible. After all, it's not easy to get over the sight of burned children, no matter how tough they are. Guts is forced to use Jill as a hostage to make his escape, and releases her once they've gotten away. He then sets out to eliminate Rosine. Jill manages to follow Guts in his quest when he is abducted by Rosine. He follows the apostle to the Misty Valley, where he is greeted by the bandits who fled from the tree in the forest. These bandits have been converted into pseudo-apostles by Rosine, and have been assigned as protectors of the valley. Guts easily decimates these bandits and ventures into the emergency, who sets the crews of developing elves on fire and gives birth to a wildfire that consumes the entire valley. Of course, Rosine doesn't like these transgressions and assumes her final apostle form, which grants her ungodly speed. She almost overwhelms the swordsman, but he uses Jill as bait once again and ambushes the apostle to land a lethal blow. He's just about to end Rosine's misery when he's shot by Zepek, Jill's alcoholic father, who's being accompanied by the old Iron Chain Knights. This intervention causes Guts to flee, and we know that the fight isn't over yet. The Knights track Guts down and reveal a prophetic warning that sees his detainment issued by the Holy See. Guts, who is yet to recover from his last battle, is really strong enough to ward off the regular Knights, but their vice commander, Zod, is too much for our guy to take. He is subsequently detained by the head commander's attendant, Serpico, despite all his efforts. Fortunately, Puck helps Guts to make an escape in the night on horseback. He even manages to take the head commander Farnese as a hostage. In a truly twisted turn of events, Farnese finds herself at the mercy of Guts' deranged and lustful horse, which brings back memories of the assault Casca suffered during the eclipse. This evokes Guts' wrath, and he finds enough strength to fight the horde of demons until morning. Varnase is possessed by a spirit during this fight. She's free when morning comes. She leaves with Circle. Later, when Guts is finally getting some rest on top of a hill, the demonic child makes him hallucinate about Casca being burned at the stake. He returns to Godod's place where he had last seen Casca to find that his old comrade has gone missing. Here, he also learns about the city of Albion, where refugees from Midland can be finding shelter after a plague had decimated their kingdom. Guts makes his way to Albion, where he's intercepted by the Skull Knight, who informs him of a mock that is about to take place. In Albion, Guts conducts a thorough investigation into Casca's disappearance and discovers a cultist den where she had been taken. In the den, a chaotic battle breaks out between the possessed cultists and the Holy Iron Shade Knights, but Guts manages to get Casca to safety and leaves her in Isidro's care before heading out to battle the Great Goat Sumo Apostle. He slaughters the heretics, but a terrible surprise awaits him. Isidro informs Guts that he failed to escort Casca and that the Holy Iron Shade Knights had taken her captive during the escape. As expected, Guts returns to Albion and defeats the Sumo Apostle and all the Seekers or Apostles. During the battle, a massive wave created out of the sea's beginning and end which washes over the refugees, and countless lives are lost. In moments, the Tower of Conviction is consumed by tormented souls and causes the tower to collapse. This is where we learn that both the living and the dead have just one ultimate desire: salvation. This is achieved through a sudden daybreak which completely overpowers the dark torment. The survivors are met by Zod and Skull Knight, who direct their attention to a strange concentration of light in the distance. The light seems to be emanating from a reconstituted griffin, who's completely whisked away by Zod. Falcon of the Millennium Empire!
Dragonite.
Next entry on this list is the Millennium of the Falcon arc, which spans a whopping 131 chapters in length. But the greater the length, the greater the brutality, so let's dive right in. This is a story that depicts Guts and his friends facing the aftermath of Griffin's incarnation. Midland is threatened by a new force, Emperor Kalishka, who's the chief of the Kushan Empire. The story begins after Guts escapes from the ruins of Albion and returns to Godod's hut with Casca. Here, they're greeted by the heartbreaking news that the blacksmith had passed away. Before Guts can even settle down, he learns that Griffith has arrived at the Hill of the Swords with a Rickard. As expected, he rushes towards his old comrade to exact his vengeance, but is stopped by Rickard. Griffith takes one look at Guts and states that even on the Hill of Swords he felt nothing whatsoever. This drives Guts into a rage and he forces Rickard away, being stopped once more, this time by Zod. Zod expresses his joy at Guts' survival of the eclipse. The two powerful warriors lock blades with each other, and Zod assumes his true form as the battle rages on, and Griffith begins to feel a faint flutter in his heart. Suddenly, Casca arrives at the location after sensing Griffith's presence from the ground, but the timing couldn't be worse as Guts and Zod's battle.
Wait, of course he's a part of it. But let's change that. Let's change that again. Nature's Fury. Do I even have a buffer? No. Do I have a healer? No. I have a dot damage. Yeah, I have dot damage. I have crowd control. Oh no, hold on. That's the category. That's still category. So under category. I just don't have a buffer in general. Yeah, no, I turned that off. I thought I cleared that. Yeah, no, I have none. So let's just see if I have a buffer in general. Nope. I have a lot of dot damage. I have one summon because that's easy. I have one healer. Crowd control, I do have. Wait, Madara's part of crowd control? What the heck? Nah, not the honored one, not bounty hunter. Uh, all right, that's exactly what I needed. Wait, what?